Good morning, ABM. Okay. Okay, so for today, we're going to discuss financial statement analysis. So for this lesson, hindi naman ako magbibigay pa ng activities kasi ma-encounter din natin to sa grade 12. So yung may mga grade 12 dito na may mga binabalikang subject or yung subject na hindi nila na-take nung grade 11. Ayan, so familiar na sila dito. Ayan, sila Jessa, sila Trish, yung mga grade 12 natin. So, familiar na sila dito, parang review na lang sa kanila. So, ito may encounter ulit natin siya sa grade 12. So, hindi na ako magbibigay ng activities. Tsaka, feel ko sapat na yung mga activities na nabigay ko para hindi na pa kayo matambakan pa. Okay, so ngayon, i-discuss ko lang to para meron kayong overview, meron kayong background dito sa lesson na to. Pero yun, sa grade 12, yun, doon na lang ako magbibigay ng activities. Kasi mas intense or mas malalim yung paliwanag doon. And also yun, nag-share ako ng video regarding financial statement analysis. Okay? So, yun. And also, announcement lang din and reminders sa mga activities nyo. Yung mga hindi pa nakakapagpasa, magpasa na. Kasi parang within this week din mag-check na rin talaga ako and diretso record na yun. Okay. So, financial statement analysis. So, what is financial analysis? It's a process of selecting, evaluating, and interpreting financial data along with the pertinent information in order to formulate an assessment of a company's present and future financial condition and performance. So, kadalasan kaya natin ginagawa itong analysis na to para sa mga users of information. And normally, yung mga users of information din, ginagawa din nila to. So, ano ba yung, sino nga ba yung users of information? For example, mga investors. Yan. So, may mga specific silang ratios or formula na ginagamit para ma-check nila kung mag-i-invest ba sila or not. Depende dun sa result na lumabas. Ayun. And also, ginagamit din siya ng mga management or top management para sa company para ma-check nila kung stable pa ba yung company or nagagawa ba ng mga empleyado yung mga duties nila. So, nag-reflect din naman yun sa financial statement natin. Okay, so we have common size analysis. So, it is the restatement of financial statement information in the standardized form. Yun. So, yung iba kasi hindi naman ganun ka galing magbasa ng financial statement, no? Hindi naman sila ganun ka knowledgeable sa financial statement. Unlike sa ating ABM, mga BSA or mga accountant, familiar na tayo kung saan nanggagaling yung mga numbers na yun. So, yung iba, yung mga hindi naman graduate ng business, ayan, hindi sila familiar sa financial statement. So, kadalasan, yung ibang mga nagpo-propose ng tawag ito ng mga business nila or ng product nila or yun nga, mga business proposal, ito yung presentation nila. Ayan. Gumagamit sila ng horizontal common size analysis and vertical common size analysis. So parang isang tingin pa lang, alam niyo ng profitable na yung isang isang business, tas kung kailan nila mababawi yung mga puhunan nila or yung mga i-invest nila. So parang isang tinginan lang nila doon sa isang papel. Alam na nila na profitable yung yung business na yun. Kahit hindi nila nakalkalin yung financial statement. Okay, so we have a horizontal common size analysis and then vertical common size analysis. So when we say horizontal, uses the amounts in the accounts in a specified year as the base, and subsequent years amount are stated as percentage of the base value. Useful when comparing growth of different accounts over time. So parang horizontal siya. Ayan, kino-compare natin yung performance ng mga accounts from last year to this year or kahit ilang taon. Okay, so for example, accounts receivable versus yung accounts receivable ng last year. So ilang percentage yung tinaas nun. So we can apply yung mga natutunan natin sa business math na percentage and then ratio. Ayun. So ayun yung tinatawag na horizontal common size analysis. So kino-compare natin yung mga accounts or yung mga account titles from last year or versus this year. Pwedeng ganun. No? Parang dalawang time or period. Pwede rin naman siyang per month or per quarter. So depende sa information na kailangan ng top management or mga investor. Next naman, vertical common size analysis uses the aggregate value in a financial statement for a given year as the base, and each account's amount is restated as percentage of the aggregate. So, syempre, pag vertical naman, di ba, vertical pa, parang patayo, di ba? And then, pag horizontal naman, pahiga. Pag vertical, pag patayo, ibig sabihin, kino-compare natin yung accounts versus sa ibang accounts sa iisang taon. No? For example, for 2019, kino-compare natin yung accounts receivable versus yung sales. Ayan. So, mamaya malalaman natin kung para saan ba yun, bakit kailangan kino-compare or bakit kailangan natin malaman yung percentage ng asset versus liabilities, yan, current asset versus current liabilities. Bakit kailangan natin malaman yung mga percentage and then yung ratio ng dalawang accounts na yon. Common size analysis express financial data including entire financial statements in relation to a single financial statement item or base. So vertical common size, ayan, pag balance sheet, each item as a percent of total asset. Ayan, for example, ito yung hinahanap natin. Ayan. Kunyari, pag sa balance sheet, yung mga per item, yung per account doon versus sa total asset. Ayan. So, kunyari, check natin yung cash natin versus yung total asset natin. So, malalaman natin kung gaano ba tayo ka-liquid, no? Ayan. So, may mga rule of thumb din tayo. Ayan. So, gaano ba kalaki yung cash natin over the total assets, no? And then, yung accounts receivable naman. So, dito, na-check natin kung sino may mga malalaking account sa loob ng total asset. Ayun, kung maganda ba siyang pangitain, ganun. Kung madami bang cash, maganda bang pangitain 'yon? Ibig sabihin ba nun maganda ang company pag madami siyang cash? Ayan, tingin niyo ba? Ayan, hulaan natin. Pag ang company ba madaming cash, ibig sabihin maganda 'yon. Pag madami siyang cash, yan. For example, sobrang parang versus the liability, sobrang ang laki ng cash mo. Maganda bang pangitain yon? Tingin niyo, ayan, chat lang kayo sa chat box kung all the time ba maganda na maraming cash ang isang business. And then why? Bakit sa tingin niyo maganda siya or hindi? Yan. Parang pwede natin ano siya, parang pang decision making. Ayan. I-chat nyo kung bakit maganda or hindi pag madaming cash or parang sobra-sobra yung cash ng isang business. Kung maganda bang pangitain yun, maganda bang, ibig sabihin ba nun stable ang isang business, they are doing well, kaya madaming cash, ibig sabihin ang dami nilang nakolektang sales, ayun. So all the time ba, pag madaming cash, malaki yung cash ng isang business, maganda ba siya? Pwedeng manghula. Okay, sabi ni Vista, hindi, kasi maaaring wala silang investment. Okay, any guess sa iba? Ayan, sabi ni Vista Cristel, yan, not all the time, hindi. Kasi ibig sabihin nun, hindi sila nag-i-invest, wala silang investment. Kaya, puro cash. Okay, any guess? Okay, sige. Actually, tama naman si Vistal, no? Talagang hindi porke marami tayong cash, eh maganda na yung business. Ibig sabihin lang nun, hindi nila naibabalik ulit sa operating cycle yung cash nila. Okay, or yun nga, parang baka wala silang investment, hindi sila nakapag-acquire ulit ng mga supplies nila or inventory nila para ibenta nila. Kumbaga yung cash nila natutulog lang, kaya sobrang laki. Hindi nila agad na ibabalik sa normal operating cycle yung cash nila. Okay. So, next, sa income statement naman, pwede tayong mag-compare ng each item as a percent of total revenue. Okay, so pwede natin i-compare yung mga expenses versus sa total revenue. Parang indication din to na anong expenses yung pinakamalaki para makuha natin itong revenue na to. Baka next time pwede natin siyang liitan. Okay, baka next time pwede natin siyang kontrolin na hindi ganun kalaki yung gastusin natin sa specific na expense na yun. Okay, for example, ang miscellaneous expense dapat hindi lalagpas ng 10% ng total revenue. Kasi pag lumagpas yun, hindi na yun miscellaneous. Tsaka, ano yung mga naka-record doon sa loob ng miscellaneous na yun? Bakit ang laki? Bakit lumaki siya ng 10, mas malaki sa 10%? So, pag hindi yun na-justify ng management or ng mga management sa top management or mga shareholders, so, baka may something. So, dapat i-recheck nila yung mga ginastos nila. Sa cash flow naman, yan, familiar na tayo sa cash flow. Each line item or account as a percent of sales, asset, or total in and out. Ayan na. Next, highlights compositions and identifies what's important. Horizontal common size naman, percentage increase or decrease of each item from the prior year or showing each year relative to a base year. Highlights items that have changed unexpectedly or have unexpectedly remained unchanged. Okay, so may mga rule of thumb din dito na dapat ganito lang kalaki yung i-increase ng mga account from time to time. Okay, so consider the CS company which reports the following financial information. So yun, sabi daw, create a vertical common size analysis for the CS company's asset and then create horizontal common size analysis for CS companies using 2008 as the base year. Yan, 2008 daw yung base year. Tapos, i-compare na natin yung mga, magkakaroon na tayo ng mga percentage kung gaano siya tumaas. Yan, para sa horizontal common size. Yan, so comparing 2013 versus 2008, gaano kalaki yung percentage na in-increase niya or na-decrease. Ganon. Ayun, pag horizontal. Pag vertical common size naman, kino-compare natin, kunyari base year natin 2008. Ayan, kino-compare natin yung cash versus the total asset, gaano kalaki yung sinasakop ng cash versus the total asset. Ayan. Sufficient ba siya para maging tamang liquid lang yung isang business? Yan, yung inventory din versus the total asset. Ayan. Okay, so for vertical common size analysis, so ganito natin siya pinapakita. So ang base ng pag vertical common size analysis, normally ang pinaka-base natin lagi ay yung total asset. Tapos, pina-percentage na yung per account. Ayan. So, ang indication nito, kanyari 100% yung total asset. And then, sinasabi dito, 6% ng total asset composed of cash. Ayan, ibig sabihin, 6% ng total asset natin yung cash. Ayan. So, kung nakikita natin dito, medyo stable naman siya. Hindi naman siya biglang lumalaki, hindi rin naman siya biglang lumiliit. So, parang stable lang naman din siya. Yan, 6%, tapos mga 5%. Hindi naman ganun kalaki. Same din with the other account. So, pag medyo nagkaroon ng malaking difference or material difference or variance between period to period. Ayun. So, i-check mo 'yon. Bakit kaya sobrang lumaki yung kunyari yung net plant and equipment natin sobrang lumaki or lumiit from period to other period. Bakit? Ano kayang nangyari? Baka nag-acquire sila ng equipment para nagkaroon kasi ng expansion. Ganon. Or biglang baka may nasirang equipment and then kailangan nilang i-dispose. So kaya lumiit yung net PPE natin, 'di ba? Ayan. So ganun yung mga parang mga conclusions or mga pinapakita noon. Okay, so gets ba natin kung paano siya computein? Ayan, parang lang yan, kunyari $400 over 7,000, so 26% as cash. So alam na natin 'to, 'di ba, kung paano mag-compute ng percentage. Tama ba ako? Alam na ba natin? Okay na ba tayo dito? Good na? Ha? Okay, so sabi ni Kabukos, okay naman na siya. Yan. So parang i-check lang natin yung percentage ng per account versus the total asset or kung ano yung sabihin sa problem na na pinaka-base natin. Okay, madali lang to, percentage lang. Lang natin siya. 400 over 7,000, ganun. Makukuha na natin yung percentage. So kung medyo nahirapan kayo, balikan nyo na lang yung business math. Okay, pag horizontal naman, ayun nga, pinapakita natin yung increase and decrease per year. So, ang base year ng horizontal common size, sabi sa problem ay yung 2008. So, ganito lang din siya. Ayan. So, ipapakita natin na yung 2009, yung cash niya, 101% ng 2008. Sa 2010, ang base year pa din ng 2010 ay yung 2008. So, 102% daw ng 2010 yung cash na 2008, ganun. Okay, so ang magiging conclusion natin dito, kunyari 2009 versus 2008, tumaas ng 1% yung cash. Ayan. So pag may mga material difference again, tsaka material variances, i-check din ng ng management or kailangan ipakita mo na agad yung yung ihanda mo na agad sa report mo yung nangyari, bakit sobrang lumaki or bakit naging nagkaroon ng material variances or material difference between period to period, no? So for example, kunyari, 2010 biglang lumaki yung cash. Ibig sabihin, baka pwede mong sabihin na or ang nangyari siguro meron kayong malaking customer na nagbayad na for that year. Ganun, kaya lumaki yung natin, yung cash natin or na-collecta natin. Okay. So, same din sa inventory. Ayan. So, ang inventory din kasi minsan, ito yung mga binibenta natin, di ba? So, pag medyo nagkaroon ng, kuya, biglang sobrang lumaki, ibig sabihin, hindi ba tayo nakapagbenta? Ganun. Yan. Same din sa accounts receivable. Ayan. Pag may mga, material difference. Ayan. So, magkakaroon lang tayo ng, tawag dito. Kailangan mo lang magpakita ng backup, parang ganun. So, kunyari, biglang sobrang lumaki yung accounts receivable, baka meron meron tayong malaking customer na baka magbabayad pa next year. So, since loyal customer naman yun, pinautang ng business, kaya lumaki yung accounts receivable. Ganun. Okay, so we have financial ratio analysis. So aside from horizontal and then vertical, meron pa tayong financial ratio. Yan. So financial ratio is the use of relationship among financial statement accounts to gauge the financial condition and performance of a company. So we can classify ratios based on the type of information and ratio provide. So, yun nga, nagsend ako sa inyo ng nagsend ako sa GC natin nung consolidated ratios na ito para sa lesson na to. So, pwede nyo nang i-keep yun. And then, para pag grade 12 natin, handang-handa na tayo para sa sa lesson na to. Ayan, para hindi na tayo masyadong mangangapa. Kasi pag nag-solve tayo, medyo baka malito-lito tayo, ganun. So at least ngayon may preparation na tayo, and then pagdating ng grade 12, sisiw na lang sa inyo. Okay, so we have activity ratio, liquidity ratio, and then solvency ratio and profitability ratio. So when we say activity ratio, effectiveness in putting its asset investment to use. So, yun nga, yung katulad kanina sa tinanong ko, kung kunyari sa pag-compute natin ng ratio or percentage, masyado malaki yung cash. Ayan, so meron ding mga conclusions din yun. So, for example, yun nga, hindi nila nababalik agad-agad sa normal operating cycle, yung cash nila. Ayan, so ang activity ratio ay para sa para makita natin kung tama ba yung paggamit ng asset. Yan. Or nag-i-invest ba agad or naibabalik ba sa normal operating cycle yung mga asset. And then liquidity ratio, ability to meet short-term immediate obligations. So ito yung madalas na tinitignan ng mga shareholders. Ayan, or ng mga investors, no, kung gaano ka-liquid ang isang company. Kasi syempre, kung nagkaroon ng bankruptcy, tapos hindi pala ganun ka-liquid yung isang business, so baka hindi nila mabawi agad yung pera nila agad-agad, no? Kasi hindi ganun ka-liquid yung isang company. Okay? And then solvency ratio, ability to satisfy debt obligations. So dito rin natin ma-check kung sapat ba or sufficient ba yung mga asset natin para mabayaran yung mga liabilities natin. So yun, meron tayong chine-check yung total asset versus yung total liabilities. Dapat mas malaki or kadalasan dapat mas malaki yung total asset. Yan. Kasi pag mas malaki yung liability, medyo pangit siya kasi baka kung may mangyaring hindi maganda sa isang company, ayan, lahat ng asset nila, kailangan mo nang bayaran lahat ng liabilities. So, paano na yung mga investors or shareholders? Yan, pag nag-liquidation na sila or kino-convert na nila lahat ng asset nila into cash, lahat 'yon mapupunta lang sa liabilities. Ayan. So pag nagkaroon ng ng liquidation, walang makukuha yung mga investor. So chine-check din ng mga ng mga investors dito or ng mga shareholders kung meron ba silang makukuha or meron silang matatanggap kung may mangyaring hindi maganda sa isang company. Next is the profitability ratios, ability to manage expenses to produce profits from sales. Okay, so ito naman, chine-check natin yung mga expenses natin versus the profit. So, kung sapat ba yung naging expenses natin para makakuha or makuha natin yung yung ini-aim nating sales. Yan. Also known as asset utilization, yan, active ratio. Ayan, also known as asset utilization or operating efficiency ratios. Yan, how efficiently is the firm using its asset? How many dollars of sales was the firm able to generate from each dollar of assets? Yan. So broadly, asset turnover is equal to revenue over average total asset. Okay, so parang dito chine-check kung gaano kalaki yung ambag ng asset sa revenue. Okay, kung gaano kalaki yung dollar or pesos na na-generate ng isang company bawat asset. Okay? And then low or declining ratio could mean sales are sluggish, a heavy investments, yan, in assets. So, yan, plant modernization to help in the future, strategy shift. Ayan, kunyari kung nag-acquire ba ng ng mga PPE dahil kailangan na nating mag-upgrade para makasabay sa trend. Ayan, para hindi tayo mapag-iwanan ng generation. Asset mix change, and specifically for fixed asset naman, itong ratio, yan, fixed asset turnover is equal to revenue over average net fixed asset. Yan. So pag may nakikita tayong average, ayan, kunya, di ba, revenue, total asset, i-check lang natin sa financial statement kung ano yung total asset. Yan. Pero pag may mga nakikita tayong revenue over average total asset, ibig sabihin, i-average natin yung current year, yung sum ng current year, tsaka yung former year or yung sinundan niyang taon. Ayan, so kunyari, gusto natin i-check yung asset turnover for 2020, ayan. So kukunin lang natin sa financial statement yung revenue for 2020 over yung sum ng 2019 at 2020 total asset, tapos yung i-average natin yun. Yan. So yun, pag may mga nakalagay na average total net asset, so 2 taon yung tinutukoy doon. Okay? So for activity ratios again, turnover ratios reflect the number of times assets flow into and out of the company during the period. So turnover is gauge of the efficiency of putting assets to work. So meron tayong mga ratio. So medyo dapat i-familiarize natin yung sarili natin, maging familiar tayo. Yan, so may sinend naman ako ng picture ng mga consolidated na ratio. So, i-keep natin yun. Kasi gagamitin din talaga natin yun. At hindi, parang kahit mag-college kayo, babalikan yun. So, mas better na i-keep nyo na siya ngayon. At least maging familiar tayo. Kung saan natin kukunin yung mga numbers, gano'n. So, for activity ratios, we have inventory turnover, receivables turnover, total asset turnover, and then working capital turnover. Okay, so for inventory turnover, COGS or yung cost of goods sold. So, yun nga, ginawa natin ito sa comprehensive income. Ayan. And then, over the average inventory. So, makikita natin to sa asset natin, yung inventory, no? Pag sabing average inventory, so, kukunin natin yung average inventory ng current year na kinukuha nating inventory turnover versus the former year. Okay? So, ang indication nito, how many times inventory is created and sold during the period. So, kung gaano tayo mabilis nakakapagbenta ng inventory. Okay, and then next, receivables turnover, total revenue over average receivables. So again, average receivables, meaning average ng last year tsaka yung current year. Okay, pag may, basta alalahanin nyo pag may average ha, average receivables. Okay, pag total revenue naman, kukunin lang natin sa, sa comprehensive income natin, yung total revenue. Yan, or total sales, ganun. How many times accounts receivable are created and collected during the period? So, kung gano'n tayo kabilis nakakakolekta ng, ng sales natin. And then next is total asset turnover, total revenue over total, average total assets. Ayan, so katulad ng kanina, kumbaga kung ilan yung kung magkano yung sales na generate ng isang company bawat asset. Okay, so the extent to which total assets create revenue during the period. And then working capital turnover, so total revenue over average working capital. So when we say working capital, current asset less current liabilities. Yan. So kukunin na natin yung average working capital from last year to this year. So the efficiency of putting working capital to work. Yan. So pag sinabi natin mga turnover, ayan, yung sagot nito ay naka-number lang. Hindi naman siya naka-percentage or naka-ratio. So, kasi kukunin lang natin yung mga times or yung number kung kunyari, kung gaano siya kabilis na nako-collect, ayan, sa isang taon. Kung ilang beses tayo nakakapag-collecta ng receivables. And then kung ilang beses din tayo nakakapagpalit ng inventory at nakakabenta. Ayun. Okay, so to summarize, ayan, so asset utilization or operating efficiency ratios. So pag sinabi natin working capital turnover, laging numerator natin yung revenue or total revenue or sales. Pare-parehas lang yun. Tapos ang denominator natin nagkakaiba. So for working capital, ang denominator average working capital. Pag fixed asset turnover naman, ang denominator natin average net fixed assets. And then for total asset revenue, ang denominator natin average total assets. Okay, so operating cycle components. Yan is the length of time from when a company makes an investment in goods and services to the time it collects cash from its accounts receivable. And then the net operating cycle is the length of time from when a company makes an investment in goods and services, considering the company makes some of its purchases on credit, to the time it collects cash from its accounts receivable. The length of operating cycle and net operating cycle provides information that the company need for liquidity. Yan, the longer the operating cycle, the greater the need for liquidity. Okay, so yon. Pag kung gaano kahaba yung operating cycle, kasi mako-compute natin yon based din sa mga turnover na na-compute natin. Ayan, so pag mas malaki yung mga turnover or yung nakuha nating turnover, ibig sabihin mabilis yung yung operating cycle. So pag ganun, pag mabilis yung turnover ng mga asset, ibig sabihin kakaunti lang yung natin, yung kailangan nating liquidity. Yan. So pag mas mahaba naman yung operating cycle or mas mahaba yung pagkokolekta natin or pagpapalit natin ng inventory, Ibig sabihin, mas kailangan nating magkaroon ng ng malaking liquidity. Okay, so operating cycle formula, 'di ba nakuha na natin yung mga mga turnover natin, inventory turnover, receivables turnover, and accounts payable turnover. Ayan, pag kinuha naman, pag ang tanong naman ay yung number of days, yan, of inventory, number of days of receivables, number of days of payables. So after natin makuha yung mga turnover kanina, i-divide lang natin siya by 365. Okay? So normally naman, 'di ba, sa isang taon meron tayong 365 days, no? Yan. So pag walang sinabing taon, yan, na kunyari merong mga, 'di ba kasi merong mga taong may mga leap year kasi, 'di ba? Pag hindi naman sinabi yung taon, wag na tayong maparanoid. 365 yung gamitin natin. So, operating cycle formulas. Ayan, operating cycle, makukuha natin yung number of days of inventory and number of days of receivables. So, di ba kanina may kinuha na tayong inventory turnover, tsaka yung mga receivables turnover, and then pagkakuha natin yon, dinivide natin siya sa 365. So, 365 over yung mga turnovers. Pag nakuha natin yung number of days, ipa-plus lang natin yung inventory tsaka yung receivables, yung number of days nila, para makuha natin yung total operating cycle. Ayan. So, pag net operating cycle naman, i-less natin yung number of days of payables. So, meron tayong total revenue over accounts payable. Ayan. And then, kukunin natin yung, i-divide natin yun sa 365. So, 365 over yung turnover na yon, para makuha natin yung net operating cycle. Yan. So, cash cycle, how long does it take for the firm to go from cash to cash? Yan. So, service companies sell service and receive cash. Merchandising company, buy inventory pa muna and then sell inventory, receive cash, and pay again for the inventory. Yan. So, manufacturing company naman, buy raw materials, make products, sell product, receive cash, and pay for the materials and labor. Cash conversion cycle naman, or the net operating cycle, days sales outstanding plus yung days inventory held, and then less number of days of payables. So ito naman, nakalink naman to lahat sa liquidity. Yan, kunyari kung gaano kalaki yung net operating cycle, dapat ganun din. Kunyari kung gaano kahaba yung net operating cycle, dapat ganun din kalaki dapat yung liquidity na mako-compute natin. Working capital, ayan, current asset minus current liabilities. Okay? Reflects the investment required to support the cycle. Yan. So, other common activity ratios, ayan, nandun rin naman yan sa doon sa sinand kong image. So, nandito na tayo sa liquidity ratio. Yan. So, dapat ma-compare natin to with the activity ratio. So, liquidity is the ability to satisfy the company's short-term obligation using the assets that can be most readily converted into cash. So, liquidity ratio, current asset over current liabilities. Quick ratio, ayan, actually lang to current asset, wag mo lang isasama yung mga mga inventories. Yan, pero normally to, cash plus yung short-term investments plus receivable over the current liabilities again. And then current ratio, cash plus short-term investment over current liabilities. Next naman, after ng liquidity ratio, so para saan nga ba yung liquidity ratio kanina? Para makita natin kung mabilis bang nako-convert yung mga total asset natin into cash. Kasi mahalaga yun sa mga investors. Yan. And then next, yung solvency analysis naman, a company's business risk is determined in large part from company's line of business. So financial risk is the risk resulting from a company's choice of how to finance the business using debt or equity. We use solvency ratio to assess a company's financial risk. There are two types of solvency ratio: company percentage and coverage ratio. Yan. So component percentage involve comparing the elements in the capital structure. Coverage ratios measure the ability to meet interest and other fixed financing costs. Ayan, so we have the following solvency ratio. Yan, maging familiar na lang din tayo. And then nandito yung mga mga conclusions or mga reasons kung bakit siya ginagamit ng mga investors or bakit natin siya kino-compute. So parang for example, debt to asset ratio, total debt over total assets. So proportion assets financed with debt. Yan, long-term debt to asset ratio, long-term debt over total assets. So ano naman to? Itong total debt, ibig sabihin nito yung liability. Okay? Same lang din yun. Pag long-term debt, ibig sabihin ng current na liabilities. Paras lang yun. So proportion of asset financed with long-term debt. And then debt to equity ratio, total debt. Yan, yung total liabilities over the total shareholders' equity. Yan, debt financing to relative to equity financing. Financial leverage, total assets over total shareholders' equity. Reliance on debt financing. Ayan. Next naman yung mga coverage ratio. Interest coverage ratio. So, EBIT over interest payment. Ability to satisfy interest obligations. Fixed charge coverage, EBIT plus lease payments. Ayan. Ability to satisfy interest and lease obligation. So, yun. I-ano lang natin to. Memorize nyo lang yan. Yan. For solvency, how well positioned is the firm to meet longer-term liabilities? So, debt ratio, how the company finance itself. Yan, total for debt to total asset, debt to equity, debt to total capital. Lower ratio, ibig sabihin safer. Yan, higher caution against potential creditor loss. Yan. Parang kumbaga pag sinummarize natin, dapat talaga maliit lang yung utang ng isang company. Yung tamang utang lang. Yan. Coverage ratios, degree to which earnings or cash flow can decline without affecting firm's ability to pay interest. So profitability ratio naman, we have the margin and then return. So margin, portion of revenues that is a profit. And then return naman, comparison of profit with the investment necessary to generate the profit. Yan. So we have the following ratios. Yan. So ito naman, yung ratios naman natin, pwede naman natin siyang i-present as percentage or ratio. Yan. Pero more likely, ano talaga to, naka-percentage siya. Each margin ratio compares the measures of income with total revenue. Yan. So lahat ng denominator natin, total revenue. Tapos versus the mga account titles na kailangan. So for gross profit over total revenue. Ayan. Operating profit margin, operating profit over total revenue. Net profit margin, net profit over total revenue. Yan. And then pre-tax profit margin, earning before taxes. So yung EBIT kanina, ano yun? Earning before income and taxes yun. Yan. So again, we also have the following profitability ratios or yung mga return. Yan. Sobrang dami lang talaga nila. So dapat maging lang tayo, familiar lang din sa kanila. Pero ngayon kasi pwede naman tayong mag-check sa notes natin habang nagsasagot. Hindi kagaya pag face-to-face, kailangan memorize mo to. So pag nag-recitation, itatago nyo yung mga notes nyo. Ganun kasi sa amin dati, kaya kailangan memorize to lahat. Unlike ngayon, pwede tayong tumingin. So, pero at least dapat maging familiar tayo sa mga ratios na to. Okay, so from the common size income statement, gross profit margin, gross profit over revenue, measures the ability to translate sales into profit after consideration of cost of products sold. Operating profit margin naman, and operating profit revenue measures the ability to translate sales into profit after consideration of operating expenses. And the net profit margin measures the ability to translate sales into profit after consideration of all expenses and revenues, including interest, tax, and non-operating items. Yan. So we have the DUPONT formulas. So maging familiar lang din tayo para mas mabilis nating maintindihan yung mga ratios. Yan. So effective use of ratio analysis. So in addition to ratio, an analyst should describe the company, line of business, major products, and major suppliers, industry information, and major factors of influences. Ayun nga, so pag nagpipresent tayo, kunyari binigyan tayo ng financial statements, tapos pinagawa tayo ng mga ratio analysis, or ayun nga, pwedeng lahat ng ratio analysis pwede nating i-present. And then kung yun nga, meron siyang lumalagpas siya sa mga rule of thumb, or medyo meron siyang material differences or variances, papakita lang natin yung mga backups natin. So for example, yung line of business niya, baka kaya siya may ganitong variances kasi ganito yung line of business niya, yung major products niya, or may mga important na nangyari for that year. Ayan. So yung mga factors na naka-influence kung bakit malaki yung nagkaroon ng mga material differences or material variances. Effective use of ratios requires looking at ratios over time compared with the other companies in the same line of business. So yun, pwede din natin i-compare yung ano natin, yung financial statement natin with the other business basta as long as na na same natin sila ng industry, tapos kasi laki din natin sila para ma-compare natin kung stable ba talaga yung business natin or nasa tamang ano na ba tayo track. Okay? In the context of major events in the company, for example, mergers and divestitures, accounting changes and changes in the company's product mix. So, maaring kaya nagkaroon ng mga major differences, nagkaroon ng mga merging, ayan, nagpalit ng portfolio yung isang company, yan, nakipag-collaborate sila with the other business, kaya magkakaroon ng difference din sa inventory nyo or portfolio nyo or yung product nyo. Ganun. So, yun, kung may mga material differences tayo, check natin kung ano nangyari. Baka naman, justifiable naman siya. Wala naman siya sigurong, wala naman sigurong anomalyang nangyari, kaya nagkaganon. Yan. So, how profitable company X, kung paano natin siya pinipresent, no? So, may 1526, ganito ba? Or companies X profitability has improved, its net profit margin was 15.3%, up from 14.9 last year. Or company X was more profitable than company Y as evidenced by its net profit margin. Company X margin of 15.3 was higher than the company Y's margin of 12%. So, pwede natin i-present na ganun. Pero, pag sa exam, kasi ganito lang. Yan, 15.26 lang. Yan. Normally kasi lang naman kinukuha. Pero pag mga nasa corporate na tayo, ayan. Okay din to. Itong ayan. Actually, mas okay to yung isang company lang. Yan, wag natin idam yung ibang company. Pero pag, syempre, pag nagpe-present tayo ng business proposal din naman, ayan, or may kalaban tayong nagpo-propose din ng business, mas better din na mag-present tayo ng comparing with the other company. Basta as long as same kayo ng industry at magkasing laki kayo para maging justifiable yung yung pagko-compare nyo. Pero pag naman kayo, nasa isang company lang naman kayo and then wala namang business proposal, just check lang ng shareholders kung kamusta tayo, kung kamusta kung profitable ba tayo this year. So, pwede na to, isang company lang. Yan. Company X profitability has improved. Its net profit margin was 15.3% from 14.9 last year. Yan. So, yun nga, pag kunyari, nasa public firm din kayo, tapos may mga corporation kayo, yan. May mga kasi yan lagi silang every quarter, lagi silang may mga shareholders meeting. And then, ayun, isa tayo sa mga involved sa pagpe-present ng ng financial statement. Minsan management, pero mas prefer nila nagpe-present ay yung mga nasa accounting since sila naman yung nakakabasa talaga ng financial statement. So gumagawa din tayo ng mga graphs. Ayan. And then ng mga conclusions natin. Okay? So yun, masaya din naman siya pag nagpe-present ka. Para kang din nagre-report. Ayun. So, dina-justify mo lang kung anong nangyari din last year. And dapat nakahanda na yun. So, for example, may mga material variances. Yan, back up ka kaagad para ma-present mo sa shareholders na justifiable naman yung variance na yun. Using financial analysis tools. Ayan, so basahin nyo na lang to. Yan, so hindi ko na ano to. Ayan, hindi ko na to ipapaano. Pwede nyo na lang tong reviewin para pagdating nyo ng grade 12. Hopefully, lahat tayo makarating ng grade 12. Sana naman. Yan, at least familiar na kayo. Yan. So yun, pwede nyo siyang computein and then i-check nyo kung tama ba yung pagkaka-compute nyo. Okay? May questions ba? May questions ba tayo? Hindi na ako magbibigay ng activity dito. So last na yung cash flow. And then checking na ako this week para ano na, makapag-bakasyon na tayong lahat. So nire-remind ko lang yung mga hindi pa nagsasagot sa Quiper. Ayan, siguro at least mga 10 yun. Yung sagutan nyo na. May mga questions pa ba, guys? Yan. So, review lang to. Kita-kits na lang tayo pag grade 12 kung andito pa ako. Yan. Kung ako pa rin yung teacher nyo next school year. Ayan. May question ba tayo? Actually, next quarter, last quarter nyo na. And then, makakaraos na kayo. Grade 12 na kayo after that quarter. Bilis, no? Grade 12 na kayo, agad-agad, next year. And then, malabong face-to-face pa. May pasok ba daw bukas? Okay, so actually ano naman tayo, naka-advance naman tayo sa business math. Tsaka madali lang yun. So, ayun, medyo mahaba-haba yung bakasyon natin. So, yung may mga incomplete, please ipaki-complete nyo na para makaraos na kayo. Ayun, para hindi na kayo dumaan pa sa completion period. Yan, and then ano ko lang.